Joyce. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. So what's been going on?
Oh, it's been a lot of work. I've had some things going on with clients. Been really busy, um, making sure paperwork is up to par and giving my clients quality care.
Well, that's good. That's really good. I haven't seen you for a while.
Well, like I said, I've been really busy. Clients been having a lot going on, so
Mm-hmm.
it's been a lot of emergencies and just been busy,
Mm-hmm.
staying on top of things.
Yeah. So last time we were supposed to meet, I got a message that you had a client emergency.
Yeah, a client had a situation where they had a crisis. They were about to be put out, and they were really struggling. And I needed to make sure they were okay and tap them into some services. So I've been really busy.
Mm-hmm. But did that work out okay, that situation?
Well, right now they're on the waiting list for other housing and funding from some resources. So I did tap them into some things, and I processed with them. And so they seem pretty calm and okay about the wait process. But it's been going good.
Mm-hmm. You say it's been really busy. Does it seem busier to you than it normally is?
I think I'm used to it. I've learned to adjust my time because, I work a couple of late hours here and there, but I got to make sure my clients are okay. Make
Well,
sure they
yeah.
have what they need.
You do a really good job of taking care of your clients. There's no question that, you're very good at that and that they really appreciate that about you. You definitely do a good job of building relationships with clients, and I know you care about them, and I know they can feel that, and I know that, that really helps us in terms of keeping people engaged in the recovery process. And so you've been doing, you do really, really good work with your clients.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I try. I do try to spend a lot of time with them. I try to manage it well, but sometimes, like I said, these crises, boy, do they have crises. But, I try to be there for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you do that really well. And so I'm wondering how the death of Shirley has affected you.
I'm okay. I just I keep busy.
Yeah.
Try to make sure I'm meeting the needs of the other clients. Death happens.
I know that death happens, but Shirley was a client you saw for a really long time. And I know because of how closely you work with people that her death is bound to have some impact on you. I mean, she didn't work with me, and I feel really sad that that happened, and other staff too. And so it's bound to have some impact on you.
Well, I've come to terms with death. It's a part of life, and I just accept it. And I am sad, but I keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
I keep busy. The other clients are here. I got to keep moving.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the sad part, though.
Well, I think I really wished I could have helped her more. It's sad it happened, but it is what it is.
When you say you really wish you could have helped her more, do you ever have thoughts like there was something you could have done or should have done?
I think I'm going to always think like that. Yeah, there is some things I think I should have done. I should have been there. But, like I said, it is what it is. It's death. It's part of life. We live, we're born, we live, we die. It's part of our life cycle, and I've learned to accept that. It's just what it is.
Right, but accepting it doesn't mean we don't have feelings about it, does it? So the sad feelings are still there, even though we accept that people die.
I don't know what you're looking for because I'm still working. I'm handling it.
Of course
I'm
you
doing
are.
my job.
And yeah, I'm not saying that you're not doing anything. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong.
Okay.
I'm not saying it. Although one of my thoughts, and this is just me, so I could be crazy, but I worry that the constant moving and the focus on the work that in that process you're not taking time to take care of yourself around what this feels like. That's my concern.
Well, I don't think you should worry about that. I'm doing okay.
So where do you allow yourself to deal with the feelings that come up? How do you?
I don't know. I work. I work. I go home. Then I work at home. I take care of my kids. I make sure dinner's done. I go to the football games and I work. I keep busy. Busy. Busy's good.
All right. So that's one way and that's good that you can do that. I mean, there's something positive and productive about that. So is there, like in the past, when you've had a loss or a difficult situation, what has helped you in terms of letting yourself feel your feelings and grieve? Where are the places in your life where you've done that?
Typically, I've always worked. I've been a protector. I've been the strong person in my family for years. So I can't really say that I've had time to grieve or to. Someone's always got to be strong. Someone's always got to be able to keep moving on. And that's been my role in my life as a child and growing up. It's all I've ever been able to do. So I thought I was handling things pretty well.
No one is saying you're not handling them well. And it's wonderful and remarkable that you've been that strong in your life. And there certainly is a place for that, and that's an admirable trait. But I'm wondering about the sadder part of you, the younger part of you that might need some caretaking at this time, and whether there's room for her too.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I let her out, if I allow myself to be sad, how do I come back? How do I come back to deal with the next crisis or the next situation?
So some part of you is afraid that if you let yourself grieve, that will be endless.
Yeah.
Well, I just would like you to sit with that question. Do you think there's a downside to not letting yourself grieve?
I don't know. I've never thought about that.
So I'd just like you to sit with that question and to think about what supports, maybe ask other people what they do. So some people would have someone that they would talk to about the lost part. Some people would do a ritual or go to church or, but there are ways that people allow themselves to grieve. And although I think many people have that feeling, like maybe I'll never be done, the truth about grief is it has a life and a death too. So just like you said, death is part of life,
right.
Grief is part of life, and it has a trajectory. You'll feel it and let it go over time. And there's no saying what that time is, but I think there is some loss in not dealing with that part. But I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying that if I were you, I would sit with that question. And partly I'm saying because I think if people don't deal with their grief, and we all have to do it, that eventually they burn out on this work. That they start to close their hearts because it's too hard, that it builds up over time. Whereas if they take the time to let themselves feel it and let it go, that people will do better in the long run.
Well, how do you suggest that I grieve? I mean, I could write her a letter. I could write her a letter.
That would be a way.
Or better yet, a poem.
maybe you could share that poem with someone who's a support. I'd be willing to hear it, or if you like, we could have you say it at a clinical supervision for everybody. That's up to you. But I'd also like you to get some support and some witnessing for that so that you're not alone with the grief. Grief is harder if you try to do it all alone, and better if you don't.
I'll take some time to think about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation with me. I know it wasn't what you were expecting. I mean, I think you're a great employee. I think you do beautiful work. And I want you to be able to do beautiful work for a long time. And grief is one of those things that if you don't deal with it, it does tend to have consequences in the long run. So I totally appreciate your being open to consider some other things that you might do so that the grief doesn't get stuck in there.
Thank you for the suggestions. Thank you for noticing.
Mm.
I never realized I wasn't paying attention to myself.
That's great.
That's helpful.
Thanks very much. This was a great conversation, and I totally appreciate your willingness to engage in it.
Thank you.
Great. So I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
In this scenario, Joyce does not seem to be aware that she is not attending to her feelings about the loss of the client. And when the scenario begins, I try to bring that to her awareness several times, but she seems to be convinced that she is coping in the way that works for her, and she's very focused on how well that's working. As a result, I spend a lot of time validating all of the benefits of the way that she's working, both the benefits to her and the benefits to the organization. And I reassure her a number of times that she isn't doing anything wrong, although I do want to explore it further. Eventually, when my probes don't work, I have to be a little bit more direct, and I gently talk to her about my concern for her and the possibility that she could develop burnout. And she does respond well to that. One of the things that this models is what you would do with a client in pre-contemplation, someone who isn't thinking about the downside of what they're doing. So Joyce gets to have this modeled for her and has the experience of what it's like to be at the other end of that. Because I want her to slow down and make space for her own feelings, I go kind of slowly. And I actually raise questions and then suggest that she just sit with them. Actually, what I want her to sit with are her feelings, but if she sat with the questions, the feelings would come as well. That actually works pretty well, because having said that a couple of times and having agreed to sit with the questions, she actually then does develop an action plan for dealing with her unaddressed grief. This scenario does illustrate the importance of talking to staff about the impact that the work is having on them and on helping them to pay attention to their own self-care. It is part of trauma-informed care and a supervisor's job to be paying attention to the impact of the work on the people that they supervise and to teach them to pay attention to it themselves. As we have seen, trauma-informed supervision is both a way of modeling trauma-informed interactions and building trauma competencies. These scenarios demonstrate the provision of a safe, empowering relationship while also enhancing supervisee competence. This is most apparent in the first scenario with Kelly, in which she's held accountable but creates her own plan for correcting the deficiency and feels safe and supported with her supervisor even while addressing something difficult. The second scenario with Mike illustrates how a calm and calming supervisor can help a supervisee to address a crisis in a way that feels okay to the supervisee, and that also promotes a safe climate in which both staff and clients feel like they have a voice in what happens. And that is another principle of trauma-informed care. In the third scenario, the supervisor helps Joyce to pay attention to her own needs and her self-care and addresses the issue of burnout. And so that's another really important part of being a trauma-informed supervisor. Sometimes staff will go to a training on trauma-informed care and come back to their agency and try to implement what they've learned. But if their supervision isn't trauma-informed, they can have difficulty doing that. They may not really know what trauma-informed care will look like, what those interactions with clients should look like. If they have trauma-informed supervision in addition to training, then trauma-informed interactions are modeled, and then staff are supported in trauma competencies and their development. So that we believe that a combination of three things really: providing trauma-informed training for all staff, providing trauma-informed supervision, and also for an organization to have a trauma-informed strategic plan, changing your policies and procedures to make them more trauma-informed. Doing all those three things is really the best environment to change to a culture of trauma-informed care.